everybody, it's me again, and this is the Anti-Disestablishmentarian podcast, if you will, episode 2. It is December 31st, 2024, and New Year's Eve is going to be, I guess it is New Year's Eve now. I had a bunch of things I wanted to talk about today, but seeing that it's New Year's Eve, I'm going to try not to get so heated as last time and just share my overall thoughts with you about where all of this is going. So, I talked a little bit about why, to this day, yes, I theoretically understand why Trump won, but it is still puzzling why people looked at him and said, yeah, we prefer that. And again, it kind of goes back to Kamala. A lot of people said she's a politician, she lies. And then you can't help but wonder, well, what about Donald Trump? He lies too. But I think at the end of the day, when the the people just are probably going to respond and say, yeah, but we know when he lies, right? We know when he's blatantly lying to us. It's so transparent. He's very transactional. You can see the wheels turning in his head. He is going to do a complete 180 if it benefits him personally. It's so childish. And so it could, it comes down to just a bunch of different things. At the end of the day, clearly the people just despise the elites. And we saw that actually this week with the whole H-1B visa situation. And it just never ceases to amaze me how people like Elon Musk, for example, or Vivek, and others who are very well off and don't understand that populism intrinsically hates the elites and they will go after you too. They will tolerate you while you are on their side. But inherently, populists, the only thing they ultimately stand for is hating the elites. So, not surprisingly, today or this week, Elon Musk came out in favor of H-1B visas. Granted, that program should and could be reformed. So, yes, a lot of companies are abusing it, but it's still overall a good program that allows countries to, or to the United States to get much needed talent. And that's why the United States economy is one of the fastest growing economies in the world today. And still, I apologize for the pausing. It's just there's a lot of things going on, so I have to every once in a while to stop and check something out. But in terms of the H-1B visa situation, no doubt that it's good for the economy, and yet, not surprisingly, MAGA is against it. A little surprising because at a certain point you thought maybe MAGA is just what Trump wants and says because they believe in him more so than anything else. But no, they actually more so than anything else hate the elites, and they hate um, essentially anybody who fits into that category, with the exception, of course, of Trump. So in this case, even MAGA basically was taken back by Trump, kind of going along with the H-1B visa situation. And you can see that for the first time in a long time, he's kind of losing a little support because he is ostensibly at least supporting the H-1B visa situation. But in any case, let's get back to Trump and why he is who he is, because that is the only way we can kind of get ahead of that and understand where all of this is going. We don't know how populism is going to play out, as I've mentioned before. It usually will morph into something else. Populism inherently is an unsustainable philosophy because the moment populists get into power, the entire point of their existence, being against the elites, kind of ceases to exist, as we're about to see in real time. And as it happened last time, unfortunately, simple, quick answers like build a wall or I'll end this war in 24 hours in the real world, quite frankly, don't work as well. The real world is a little more complicated than that. So a lot of times you'll have to confront issues head on. And hopefully people will then say, okay, well, easy solutions don't work. We're not going to trust populists anymore who promise us the sky. and we're going to actually focus on politicians who are at least trying or making an attempt to look like they're trying to deal with the issues. But that aside, right now, the question is, what was it about Trump? And again, I've been kind of thinking about it for, some time now. One of the analogies that I kind of used was that Trump, again, he's a shark. He's not a smart man, but his instincts are very, very shark-like. So the perfect example is how he signed the checks, right? He signed the checks, and people were like, "Oh, that's so petty. You want your name on a check for COVID, the stimulus checks." Is anybody really going to buy that? Yes, people buy that. People see Donald Trump's name, rightfully or wrongfully, on a stimulus check, and they assume that is him sending them money. And Trump, because he's not the smartest intellectually and academically, and on a very fundamental level, he understands how a lot of people's human psyche functions. He's like, yeah, people are going to see my name on the check and they're going to be happy. And lo and behold, that is what happened. Of course, there were other things that happened as well. The assassination attempt, looking back, probably played a bit of a role. Who knows? Maybe he would have won without it. There's a populist trend in the world right now. But nonetheless, I mean, it's kind of crazy to think about how a millimeter or a centimeter in one direction could change human history. I mean, they talk about events changing human history. I never really believed it. I always thought that the trajectory of history was kind of is what it is, and humans can, to a certain extent, adjust it here and there a bit, but ultimately the arc of history will go wherever it's going. With that bullet missing Trump by a centimeter, you have to ask yourself, how different would the world be? And we don't know. We don't know how different the world would be. We also don't know what it's going to be like in the next 4 years. If Trump's presidency is like the first four, I think we'll survive. On the other hand, if he starts doing the crazy stuff he's talking about doing right now, like trying to apparently annex Greenland and Panama and some other country like Canada, I mean, that's obviously just a ridiculous and crazy proposition. But hopefully, at the end of the day, it won't be too bad, and will be and it'll be for the best in the sense that there is only one way, in my opinion, to get rid of these populist tendencies, and it's to see what happens when people are elected who hold these views, and then seeing, okay, well, again, the simple, easy solutions just don't work. More to the point, as I was mentioning with the assassination attempt and the checks and all of that, I think what people underestimated is just our social media and the way our culture has changed. It's almost like we're watching a TV reality show. We got different seasons. Season one was Trump beating Hillary in an unexpected win, going off and having a crazy presidency with so much drama. Then he loses the election, one of the biggest elections. He is basically um, saying things like, unless I win, that it's rigged. There's an attack on the Capitol, an insurrection. He is basically politically dead at that point. People are coming out against him. He almost gets impeached, but somehow it's a comeback. He almost gets assassinated, and still he keeps going. And ultimately, he ends up making one of the greatest comebacks in political history. Can't deny that. And he's back on top. Again, that story isn't told yet. There's apparently going to be a season three or whatnot, but the point being is that people bought into that, and maybe they needed that, and maybe they wanted that. They wanted to see what's going to happen. They are living essentially in a reality TV show, and I feel like that's nice when it's not directly impacting you. But as soon as it does, all of a sudden it's not as fun. And that explains why he lost during COVID. COVID was serious, especially in 2020. People said, no thanks. We don't want a reality TV show right now. We care about our loved ones. We care about getting that under control. So they voted against him. And now think that things have calmed down. He's back. He's back in the presidency. Okay. It is what it is. Um, in general, as we go into 2025, as I've mentioned before, I think that we should let things to some extent play out the way that they should play out. In other words, clearly the nation has spoken and said that they prefer Trump, and Let's see if he can govern. Let's see if he can govern. However, we should also have some red lines. My red lines are no door to door neighborhood sweep mass deportations, because that is now a fascist type of issue. You can arrest and deport the criminals. Heck, even if somebody gets caught incidentally in that, you don't have the papers. Let's say you don't have any family here, you get deported, you shouldn't have been here, fine. But going out and intentionally looking for law abiding illegal aliens who have been here for years, got families, and deporting them is just heartless. That's a red line for me. Another red line for me is anything foreign policy aggression wise. We're not going back in and invading Panama. We're not going to try to forcefully take over Greenland. That is a red line. And the same to me is true about standing by our allies. We're not going to give up Ukraine, and we're not going to give up Taiwan, and we're not going to give up allies who are being invaded. So I don't know what I'll do if he crosses that line. Maybe I'll be there at the White House with a sign. Maybe I'll do something else. In some ways, this is me trying to do something, but that is a red line. And another red line doesn't seem serious, but the odds surprisingly are saying there's a 15% chance or something that Trump will win the Republican nomination for 2028, something that he's unconstitutionally able to seek office for a third term. I mean, this is a no brainer. He's already kind of broached the subject. It's crazy, but we've seen crazier things. And so at this point, anything that he does that is blatantly unconstitutional is going to be another red line. Him going after his political opponents. I don't care if they file a lawsuit or if they start a criminal proceedings against Liz Cheney. But if he starts to, if he, I don't, I mean, hopefully the legal system will prevail. You need a jury. I don't see any jury convicting her. So in some senses, I feel like this is gonna play out, and he's gonna lose anybody who he goes after. But at the same time, if he starts extrajudicially trying to get people, and through, I don't know, some kind of mechanisms, then yeah, I think that is another red line. But that aside, let's just see how the next 4 years, um, 4 years go through. There's already signs that Trump won't be able to govern. There's Mike Johnson can only afford to lose 2 votes. He's already lost Massey, who incidentally blocked me. Um, Not that I care. I just find it ironic that now he's the one who's not supporting Trump's nomination for Speaker, Mike Johnson, and likely there's going to be at least one more. They can't elect a Speaker. Ironically, there's some question as to whether they can even certify him as president on January 6th. So we'll find out in a couple of days whether Johnson will be Speaker. If I had to guess, they'll probably make some concessions and end up being Speaker. Maybe they'll get somebody else. But in any case, yeah, it's going to be a tricky next 4 years. Again, New Year's Eve podcast. Let's see what happens in the next 4 years. In Ukraine, when the war started, there was a saying. This was while Russia had accumulated its forces around the Ukrainian border under the guise of exercises, and Biden kept saying they're going to invade, they're going to invade, they're setting up military hospitals, they got blood banks. We have intel that says they're going to invade. Russia, of course, kept saying they won't. But in any case, the Ukrainians had a saying during this very tense period of time where it was a little unclear whether Russia would actually invade or not. And it went something along the lines of stay calm and clean your gun. Now, of course, I'm not advocating for any political violence or anything like that, but the point here is stay calm and be prepared. Be prepared to act in a civil and legal manner if Trump crosses the line. But until then, stay calm. Don't go crazy just because he does or says something silly or ridiculous. The people, many people, wanted this, and we should let them have it. There was a saying, something along the lines of democracy is when the common man gets what he or she wants and gets it good and hard. Well, here it is. This is what the common man, quote unquote, wanted. I disagree with this semantic, way of saying that Trump won the working class. I think, like I said, that is a very overly simplistic way of saying it. But nonetheless, if the quote unquote working man wanted Trump, let's see how he acts because the economy is really strong right now. And so we believe that, or, just today it was announced that the stock market grew for another 23, 24%, and it did the same last year. The inflation rate is down to like 2.7, 2.8%. And all the metrics in the economy are strong. The unemployment rate is down. The next 4 years, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of uncertainty. I've personally taken steps to kind of take that into account when designing, when, figuring out what to invest in. Not that I have a lot of funds to invest, but I figured I'm going to play it safe. I'm not going to invest in anything risky nowadays. But there's a major, major risk that, for example, Elon and Trump are going to have a falling out. Both are very, very egotistical people, and they have quite a bit of sway. And we'll see how that happens, and if and when that happens. So again, we'll see. I think in many ways it is a little too early to say what's going to happen. There's always going to be surprises and twists and turns. That's always been the case. So um, let's see what happens in 2025. Hope to talk to you soon again. Appreciate you all listening and happy New Year's.